how important is it, this connection with nature, for people to have? And then the other side, like, how important is it for nature? Do you see what I'm saying? Because there's a two-way thing, isn't there?
My sense is that it's very important if we want to be connected. It kind of depends on our goals. If we want to be connected to the wholeness of who we are, the importance of it may be invisible to people who are living lives that are kind of really stressful and oriented to day-to-day survival. Uh, if you think, do you know who Abraham Maslow and Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Do you know
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
that's that little pyramid? And basically, what Maslow observed is that before we could start working on these higher level issues like authenticity and um, we have to first have the foundation in place, which is things like food, shelter, and clothing, safety in our relationships with other human beings, and so on. Once we have those in place, we can start working on the higher order of things. If they're doing those in ways that are actively harming other people, like, well, as meant, I'm sure you can think of your own examples, but there's many, many.
The examples that I'm thinking of, which are relevant to a lot of people listening, is just, the whole EMF business I was explaining, my story before we came on, and like what they're doing in terms of, the cell towers, because we all want these fancy cell phones with all of this, communication and data download and video streaming and all the rest of it. And yeah, at the same time, we've got all of this science which is showing that this communication, these electromagnetic fields, which these cell towers and so on are emitting, are damaging plants, animals, insects. We've got a lot of science on this, how it's impacting the bee population, which is like, what Einstein said about the bees. Once the bees have gone, that's it for humanity. And so, yeah, of course, we're all, but there's so much ignorance about this, about that particularly. And generally what you said about people are, we've got the fracking and everybody wants to be able to turn on the light and their heating and etc. But at what cost? But then if we don't know what we're doing, if we don't begin to understand what we're doing to our planet, then we're not going to do anything about it. We're not going to make any decisions to try and save our planet if we just don't know. And that's one of the problems. So it's like this, going out in nature, quite simply just going out in nature. It's this relationship thing which I think is so important. It's having this relationship with nature, that's the key. And it's beginning, it's just beginning that relationship. And then if you don't go out in nature, if you don't go for a walk in the forest, if you don't even go out your front door, because it's not even going in a forest, is it? It's just going out your front door and hearing the birds sing and looking at the plants and connecting with nature. It doesn't have to be about going on a 3-hour hike.
No, it doesn't. And a lot of my current maintenance of nature connection and relationship involves sitting out on my deck when the weather supports it, and just doing that, like a morning cup of coffee out on the deck without an agenda, without a book, just paying attention to the birds that are coming and going, what's happening in the sky with the clouds and what's happening with various plants in the season. And so all of that is just really good. But the relationship issue, what seemed important to me, I'm going to go back to the example of restorative justice. For the perpetrator to understand what the damage was and what the needs are of the victim's voice is required. That has to be told by the victim. So we don't manage our relationships with other than human beings and with the earth in that way, we expect that that science, using the considerable powers of empiricism and the whole scientific method, will be able to give us facts, and that those facts we allow to be a placeholder, in a sense, for the voice, the direct voice of the world. So if you think of waters, many waters are very polluted. And I think the water can tell us about that if we develop some really specific skills, which I can talk about also. To sit with water and to ask it to tell us directly, what does it need? And so that's one of the points of relationship, is relationship. When we're in an authentic relationship, we might carry enough humility to realize that we don't know. We don't automatically know what the other needs. We have to be in a dialogical relationship. So a lot of my question was, well, how do I have a dialogue with, say, a species of tree, or with waters, or with stones, or animals, or what? How do I have a dialogue with that? And the ANFT's model of forest therapy is meant to support people with that inquiry, how to have a dialogue. Our capacity to listen and to have dialogue, particularly with other people, is centered in the heart. It's a particular kind of capacity called imaginal capacity. It's not imaginary. Imaginal is one where we bring kind of an image that we offer, and in exchange we may be given an image back, and the meeting of those two images creates something new that's relational. It really helps to talk out loud for most of us. If we're not talking out loud, our minds may get a little drifty. I've done that with a number of different species and waters and so on. And I've also used that exact same technique with people. So where we sit facing each other and we hold rope to our chest, and we go through those 4 questions.
So just give me those 4 questions again, if you could.
How did this connection first come into being? How has it developed since then? And a few highlights of the story of how it's developed since then. That's the second question. And the third question, is there any knots or kinks that are restricting the flow in this relationship, that are interfering with it? And then, and that usually is where you spend most of your time, especially if you're with humans. And then the fourth one is, how would you like this to be going forward? Those are the 4 questions.
Yeah, excellent.
There's a 5th question that I'll throw in with humans, which is, how would you like to bring this conversation to a close? And that usually people just get up and hug each other.
So that's kind of a relational therapy structure, we call it that?
Yeah, it's meant to heal the relationship aspect. So it's not about, let's do therapy with an individual person, or do therapy with an individual willow. But what we can learn then is, we can learn how to give the other than human beings their voice in helping to guide us into whatever the next steps are that we need to take. And I feel like if we had more methods like that, it could be very helpful for us and many other species. I think that big changes happen as a result of small changes that increment, and that over time, in mysterious ways, work together.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the way I see it too, mostly. But we do, I think, occasionally have like miracles happening. And we need to hold space for those, and don't kind of write off that, and saying, well, that'll never happen. But that can happen too. But yeah, mostly it seems to be incremental, small, over time shifts. Thank you so much, Amos. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Lloyd, and I hope this is helpful to your listeners. I really appreciate having
I
the time.
appreciate you. And thank you, listener, viewer, for attending today. If you're looking for solutions to deal with EMFs, we've not really talked about EMFs, but this is very obviously connecting with nature. Wow, so powerful. Then this interview and all my other interviews are in the EMF Expert Solutions Club with transcripts. My name is Lloyd Burrell. Until next time, thank you so much. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.